Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much.
Have you ever noticed how silence can be louder than anger? Have you ever wondered why walking away sometimes feels stronger than fighting back? And have you ever felt a quiet power rise in you right when someone tried to tear you down? There's something sacred about silence. In a world desperate to win every argument, there is rare strength in the man or woman who can walk away without saying a word. Not because they lack a response, but because they refuse to lower themselves just to speak it. There is real power in the soul that has been hurt, disrespected, or ridiculed, and still chooses silence. That is not weakness. That is strength. When someone disrespects you, it's natural to want to react, to raise your voice, defend your name, tell your side. But there is a greater strength, the kind that looks straight into the storm of insult and walks away untouched. That strength doesn't come from pride or ego. It comes from knowing who you are. When you know who you are, you don't argue about it. And when you're grounded in who God made you to be, no attack from man can alter your standing with him. Many assume silence means defeat, but that isn't true. When Jesus stood before Pilate, he was silent. He didn't answer every accusation or try to prove his innocence. Truth doesn't need to scream, and real power doesn't need to parade itself. Sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. Some of you have been insulted in ways that broke your heart. Words were spoken behind your back. Your name dragged through the dirt. Your character attacked, maybe at work, maybe in your own home, maybe by someone you trusted. That kind of disrespect makes you want to rise up and strike back. But there is a better way. Silence protects your dignity. It holds your peace. It keeps your character intact when others try to stain it. Anyone can argue. Anyone can fight back. But it takes someone rooted in truth, grounded in grace, to stay quiet after disrespect. It takes someone with vision beyond the moment to say, I don't need to respond. I know who I am. You don't need to match disrespect with more disrespect. You don't need to speak on their level when you were never meant to live on it. Some people insult you because they want to drag you down to where they are. But when you stay quiet, you show them. I'm not coming down. I've climbed too far to lose my peace just to prove a point. And for the one who's been misunderstood, you tried to love well, you gave your time, your kindness, and they still mocked you, used you, and spoke against you. I know that wound. But God knows too. When you choose silence after disrespect, he steps in and speaks for you. He heals what their words bruised. He restores what they tried to break. He elevates you beyond the places they tried to hold you down. Silence isn't empty when your spirit is still speaking. When your heart stays aligned with truth, your posture becomes a testimony. You don't need to shout to show strength. You don't need to respond to be right. Let them talk. Let them twist the story. Let them misunderstand what they can't see. You stay planted. You stay quiet. You stay faithful. There is peace on the other side of silence. There is favor in letting things go. There is promotion in the restraint you choose. When you refuse to fight fire with fire, you rise above the flames. And in that stillness, God speaks. And when he speaks, chains break, doors open, healing flows, and you move forward. Let them say what they want. You don't need to prove anything. Because when you stay quiet after disrespect, you are not giving up. You are standing tall. You are walking in wisdom. You are proving that your spirit cannot be provoked into pettiness. You're on a higher path now. You don't lower yourself for noise. You rise for purpose. There will be moments in life when you're misunderstood, misjudged, and mistreated. People will say things about you that aren't true. They'll twist your intentions and question your heart. And when that happens, something inside you wants to rise up and set the record straight. You want to defend yourself and correct their version of the story. But remember this. God defends what you don't have to explain. You don't need to fight every lie, chase every rumor, or drain yourself trying to convince people of your worth. If they wanted the truth, they would have asked you first. Some people aren't searching for truth. They're searching for entertainment. They want someone to blame, and you don't owe them your peace to satisfy their curiosity. God knows what was said in secret. He knows the hidden motives, the quiet betrayals, the whispers behind closed doors. And he knows your heart. He sees what you were truly trying to do, how much you've grown, how hard you tried. That's why you can stay quiet, because God is your witness. And when he speaks, no one can silence him. Sometimes God allows you to be misunderstood so he can reveal who's really for you. Not everyone deserves access to your truth. Some are so settled in their judgment that no explanation would change their minds. That's when silence becomes your shield. When you trust the God who sees your tears also sees your enemies, and he will handle what you cannot. When you fight your own battles, you block him from stepping in. But when you say, Lord, I'll stay quiet and trust you, he moves in ways you never could. He brings things to light, exposes darkness, and brings justice without you lifting a hand. You don't need a loud voice when you have a righteous advocate. Some of you have carried the weight of a false story. You've lost sleep over what people think. You've cried over things you didn't do. But let it go. You don't owe explanations to people who were never meant to understand you. You don't have to defend yourself in a court God has already overruled. Stay silent. Let them talk. Your life will speak louder than their opinions. God knows how to vindicate his children. He will raise you in the place they tried to tear you down. He will open doors no slander can shut. He will bless you publicly after they cursed you privately. His favor cannot be erased by lies. That's why you can walk in peace and keep your head high. Your destiny doesn't depend on their approval, but on God's promise. There is peace when you stop trying to be understood and trust that God already understands. There is freedom when you stop explaining and start resting in who you are. You don't need to convince anyone of your calling. You don't need to debate your purpose. Your fruit will speak for you. Time will reveal the truth. The enemy wants to pull you into defending, arguing, overthinking, trying to fix what they chose not to see. But every moment spent correcting lies is a moment taken from living your truth. Every word wasted on them is energy you could be using to build what God gave you. Your silence is not surrender, it's strategy. You're giving space for God to work, giving time for truth to rise, showing faith that whispers, I don't need to fight for myself. And when God fights for you, no weapon formed against you will prosper. When he defends you, every tongue that rises against you will fall silent. When he justifies you, no one can deny what he's done in your life. So stop explaining. Stop chasing those who were never meant to walk with you. Stop watering down your spirit just to make others comfortable. The people who matter already see you, and the ones who don't were never meant to. Stay silent, stay still, and watch what happens when God steps into the room. There's a dangerous thing that happens when you let someone else's disrespect linger too long in your mind. It begins to echo. It begins to shape how you see yourself. It plants seeds of doubt, insecurity, and shame, seeds that were never meant to grow in your soul. Words spoken in anger or ignorance don't simply disappear. They try to root themselves in your thinking. And if you're not careful, those words start building a prison inside your mind, a prison made of lies that were never yours to carry. Disrespect always carries a voice that whispers, you're not good enough, or you're not worthy. Those voices never come from God. They come from people who couldn't see your value, who were too wounded to treat you with honor. Yet if you don't guard your spirit, their voices can become your inner dialogue. You start repeating what they said. You start believing what they projected. Little by little, your confidence breaks, your joy drains, and your peace is stolen, not by what happened, but by what you allowed to stay in your mind after it happened. This is why silence holds so much power. When you choose not to respond to disrespect, you're not just walking away from the person, you're protecting your mind. You're refusing to let their voice speak louder than your truth. Because no matter what they said, how they treated you, or what they tried to make you feel, your identity was never in their hands. Your future has never been tied to their opinion. You are who God says you are, not who they made you out to be in a moment of anger. And here's what the enemy hopes you never see. Disrespect is a doorway to fear, bitterness, anger, and self-doubt. If he can keep you replaying that moment, he can keep you stuck. If he can keep you stuck, he can distract you from your assignment. And if he can distract you, he can make you live under their influence instead of God's authority. But everything changes the moment you say, I won't let their words live here. When you silence the noise and tune into God's voice, the chains begin to break. You start to understand that your mind is sacred, and not everyone deserves space in it. Not every insult deserves a replay. Not every critic deserves a response. You begin to feel the strength of stillness. You discover that peace isn't found in proving people wrong. It's found in refusing to let their wrongness define your path. There is a kind of quiet that speaks louder than words, the quiet of a healed mind, a secure soul, someone who knows, I don't need to respond because I know who I am. And that kind of silence, it confuses people. It frustrates those who try to provoke you because they hoped you'd lose your peace. They expected you to react, but instead you smiled, you prayed, you walked away, and you kept building. Don't let the words of wounded people shape the vision of your future. Some people disrespected you not because of who you are, but because of what they saw in you, something they couldn't handle. Your light exposes their darkness. Your peace irritates their chaos. Your purpose makes their comfort feel small. And instead of growing, they insult. Instead of rising, they try to pull you down. But you don't have to follow them. You don't have to carry their weight. Let them talk. Let them mock. Let them misunderstand. You are not called to argue with noise. You are called to walk with clarity. And the clearer you become about who you are, the quieter you grow when disrespected. Silence says, you cannot shift me. Silence says, your opinion is not my identity. Silence says, you don't get space in my head or my future. So the next time someone disrespects you, take a breath. Remember this, their words are not truth simply because they were spoken loudly. Their behavior is not your burden to carry. And your peace is too valuable to give away just to win a moment of reaction. Protect your mind. Guard your spirit. Let your silence testify that you are free. There's a truth we don't talk about enough, but you must hold on to it when you've been disrespected, mistreated, or wounded by people you never expected. The real battle is not against people. It may look like it, it may feel like it, but behind every harsh word and every betrayal, there is a deeper war, one you cannot see with natural eyes. And if you try to fight it in the flesh, you'll lose every time. The enemy wants you to believe it's about the person who insulted you. He wants you fixated on their actions, their rejection, their words. Because as long as your eyes stay on people, you never see the spirit behind what's happening. You miss the trap designed to pull you into offense, bitterness, and self-doubt. But if you step back, if you pause in the silence and look with spiritual eyes, you'll realize the conflict was never between you and them. It was always between the enemy and your purpose. Staying quiet after disrespect is not avoiding confrontation. It's resisting the enemy. It's declaring, I will not let this moment rob my peace. I will not let it pull me out of character. I will not let it delay what God is doing in my life. Every time you choose silence over retaliation, you're fighting a spiritual war. You're saying, you can try, but you will not have my mind, my joy, or my future. We were never meant to fight flesh with flesh. We were meant to fight spirit with spirit. That's why the silence of a righteous person carries such power. It's not passive, it's active. It's the stance of someone who knows, my fight is not with man. It's with the darkness trying to use man against me. And when you see it that way, everything shifts. You stop needing to be right. You stop needing to respond. You stop trying to fix people who were never assigned to walk with you. There are moments when silence becomes a weapon. A weapon that confuses the enemy because he expected you to react. He expected your flesh to rise up. He expected you to lash out. He expected you to act small so he could accuse you later. But instead you stood still. You kept your peace. And that silence roared louder in heaven than 1,000 shouted replies on earth. Some of you are facing battles in your homes, workplaces, and friendships, and you think it's all about the people involved. But look deeper. Look at the timing. Notice how the attack came right as you were stepping into something new. Look at how disrespect showed up the moment you began growing, healing, and moving forward. That's not coincidence. That's strategy. The enemy knows if he can trap you in offense, you'll lose focus, waste energy, and start living reactive instead of receptive to revelation. But you weren't called to be reactive. You were called to be rooted. Rooted in truth, rooted in peace, rooted in the awareness that the enemy is a liar and God is still in control. Don't give anyone more power than they deserve. Don't let their disrespect become the center of your story. They were only a distraction. The real story is what God is building in you while you stay silent and trust Him. There's a strength that comes only when you stop fighting people and start standing in faith. When you say, God, I don't need to fight this battle. I don't need to defend my name. I trust you with what's beyond me. Heaven steps in. And when heaven steps in, no weapon formed against you can prosper. Lies lose their voice. What was meant to drag you down ends up beneath your feet. You are not powerless. You are just fighting differently. You're fighting with silence. You're fighting with wisdom. You're fighting by staying planted when everything in you wants to react. And while others shout, slander, and scheme, you rest in the arms of the one who fights for you. You may never receive the apology. You may never get closure. You may never hear them say, "I was wrong." But you will receive something far greater, peace. And that peace is worth more than any argument you could win, any ego you could satisfy, or any revenge you could imagine. So the next time you feel disrespected, don't stare at the face. Look at the force behind it. Don't fight people. Fight the good fight of faith. Stay silent, stay prayerful, and let God finish what the enemy started. There is a deep healing that comes when you understand you were never created to argue for your value. Not to family, not to friends, not to those who wounded you. When you constantly feel the need to prove your worth to people who refuse to see it, you've already given them too much power over your soul. Step back from that need. Let it go. You were not called to fight for your value. You were born with it. Disrespect tempts you to be seen, to shout, "Don't you know who I am? Don't you see what I've done? Don't you know how much I care?" But the people who truly value you will never make you beg for honor. And the ones who demand constant proof were never meant to hold the weight of your worth in the first place. God gave you your value before anyone ever gave you attention. Before they applauded you, He approved you. Before they praised you, He prepared you. Before they criticized you, He called you. And what He gave you, no one can take away. When you truly believe that, you stop arguing for a place at someone else's table. You start building your own. You stop waiting for permission. You start walking in purpose. Some people disrespect you just to test you, to see if they can sway your emotions, shrink your spirit, or silence your confidence. They'll use silence to strip you, sarcasm to shame you, or rejection to rattle you. Listen to me. Don't take the bait. Don't fall into the trap of trying to convince anyone that you're worthy of being treated with honor. That is not your job. Your job is to know your worth so deeply that you can walk away from any table where respect is no longer being served. There is power in not responding. There is power in saying, "I don't need your validation. I've already been crowned by my Creator." You don't need to explain your heart to people who've hardened theirs toward you. You don't need to prove your character to those committed to misunderstanding you. Some can't see your value because they're blinded by their own brokenness. Others refuse to see it because honoring you would force them to confront their own insecurity. But their blindness doesn't diminish your beauty. You're not a project, not a possession, not a role to be debated. You are a masterpiece shaped by the Most High, and your value is not up for vote. It isn't your job to make anyone believe it. Let your peace speak. Let your silence say what your words no longer need to defend. And to the one who's been giving and giving only to be overlooked, you've poured your heart into people who treated it like nothing. You've stayed faithful while they stayed ungrateful. You honored people who barely saw you. And you're tired of trying, tired of explaining, tired of hoping they'd finally recognize your worth. But God sees it all. Every moment you held your tongue when you could have lashed out. Every time you chose love over resentment. Every time you stayed when pride told you to walk. People may miss it, but heaven never does. You are not forgotten or invisible. Your worth isn't tied to who acknowledges it. So stop exhausting yourself trying to be enough for people who can't even be honest with themselves. Stop shrinking so others can feel tall. Stop answering every accusation with an explanation. Your character will outlast their critique. Your fruit will speak louder than their doubt. Your quiet confidence will echo longer than their temporary applause. The more you recognize your value, the less you'll feel the need to defend it. The more you walk in purpose, the less time you'll spend trying to convince anyone to respect you. You'll understand that silence isn't giving up, it's growing up. It's realizing your voice is too valuable to waste on people who want to argue, not understand. You were never meant to carry the weight of being enough for everyone. You're already enough in the eyes of the one who made you. So stay quiet after disrespect, not because you don't know what to say, but because you know who you are. Sometimes disrespect isn't just a moment. It's a message. It reveals where you no longer belong. It's more than what they said or how it made you feel. It's a sign the season has shifted and you can't stay where you once stood. There are places you must leave quietly. There are people you must release silently. Elevation requires separation, and not everyone can go where you're going. God often uses pain to push you forward. He uses rejection to reposition you. And sometimes he allows disrespect to become the doorway that leads you out of comfort and into calling. But if you cling to what hurt you, if you keep revisiting what dishonored you, if you keep talking about who mistreated you, you'll miss the lesson in the leaving. You'll miss the growth found in the quiet. When you stay silent after disrespect, you're not running, you're rising. You're saying, I've learned what I needed to learn here. I've seen what I needed to see, and now I'm walking away, not in defeat, but in discernment. This isn't bitterness. It's clarity. It's the understanding that holding on to certain environments, relationships, or habits will only weigh you down in the next season. And where God is taking you, you can't carry that kind of baggage. There is a sacredness in separation, a holiness in silence. Because when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop defending your presence, when you stop trying to force people to treat you right, you free yourself. You stop trying to earn what should have been offered freely. You stop adjusting your spirit to fit spaces that can't contain your calling. And that quiet walk away becomes your loudest declaration of growth. Some of you are waiting for an apology that may never come. You're holding your breath, hoping someone will admit they were wrong or finally recognize your worth. But what if that apology never arrives? What if they never change? What if the closure you're longing for comes not from their words, but from your decision to move forward without them? Elevation doesn't happen when everyone claps for you. It happens when you outgrow the need for their applause. When you say, God, I trust you enough to leave what's familiar. I trust you enough to walk in silence if it means walking in purpose. That kind of faith opens doors you didn't even know were locked. That kind of surrender breaks chains you didn't realize you were carrying. Let them talk. Let them gossip. Let them wonder why you've gone quiet. You don't owe them your voice. You owe God your obedience. And if staying silent after disrespect is the path that leads you into obedience, take it. Take it with courage. Take it with dignity. Take it with the confidence that when you release the wrong things, you make space for the right things. It's not about proving you're right. It's about protecting what's right in you. It's recognizing when a space no longer honors your growth, when a relationship no longer reflects your value, when a circle no longer supports your purpose. And instead of forcing it to work or lowering your standards to feel seen, you walk away, quietly, strongly, fully convinced you don't need to shout to make an exit. Sometimes your silence is the sound of a soul set free. You're not angry. You're not bitter. You're simply no longer available for dishonor, no longer accessible to emotional chaos, no longer willing to shrink to be accepted. And that's okay. That's growth. That's elevation. Not everyone will understand, and some will misread your silence as weakness. Others will label your distance as pride. But you don't live for their understanding. You live for the calling. And if the path to that calling requires quiet exits and silent separation, so be it. God is calling you higher, and higher places require lighter loads. So let go. Release the weight. Don't carry what they did into what God is about to do. Don't let a moment of disrespect turn into a lifetime of resentment. Move forward quietly, boldly, and with purpose. When you leave in peace, you make room for the promise. Wishing you health, happiness, and remember to subscribe to my channel Mindset Daily.